All right, we're on. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Some Days Today. I am your host, Bola Odina. And with me today, I have Temi Demirin. Yay! Thanks, Sam. You gotta be closer to the...
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Okay.
Okay. I think we're good. I think we're good. Okay. All right. Well, welcome, Temi.
Thank you.
Yes. So, number one, I'm excited for two reasons. First, you're here. This is exciting. You're like the first guest outside of the Odina clan.
Okay.
Because the only other guest that we've had is Mac Odina.
I feel very honored.
We feel honored that you're here. So that's great. And then the second reason I'm excited is because the launch of the podcast is today. We did the launching of the podcast today. And yes, I'm really excited. I think basically what that means is, I've been recording, each episode by episode for about 6 months now. And only a handful of people have listened to it up until today. I'm not even sure how many people are listening to it today after the launch, to be honest. We'll see. I'm sure there's a way to pull it up on all the streaming, whatever, to see. But I'm eager to get feedback and see what people think. So we'll see. So I'm excited.
You should be.
But in the meantime, we're going to do our 10th episode.
Yay.
And this is great because 10 is special to you, Temi.
Yeah, I just like the number 10. I don't know. There's really no philosophical.
I think 10 is isn't that the number of perfection, or is that 7?
I think it's 7.
Okay, you're right. Because God created the world.
It's 7
You're right
days.
about that. I don't know. But 10 is significant because I think that at least is the basis of learning.
Yes.
And computation in general, right?
Yeah. I think 10 just has like a really special. It's just a special number to me. I really don't know why. But maybe it'll be revealed to me sometime in the future. I don't know.
You know why 10 is special to me? My youngest, Amy, her birthday is 10/10/10.
Oh.
October 10th, 2010. Yes.
Okay.
So ever since, I've been paying more attention to 10. And her middle name is Teniola. Isn't that nice?
You have 10s like all around.
All around.
See, 10.
Yeah. So today, this is the 10th episode, and I asked Temi to come on because, number one, she's amazing. You're really amazing, Temi.
Really?
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah. And then I guess just to give a bit of a background, Temi and I met about a year ago, maybe a little less. It was at a Christmas party.
Yeah. So almost a year ago.
Almost a year ago.
About a year ago, yeah. Almost.
It was at a Christmas party in Gaithersburg. One of our other friends was having it. And I don't even know how we connected. Do you remember? Maybe over working out.
I know we just kind of we all hit it off. We had a really great conversation that day at the Christmas party. And then I think I said, yeah, you should come check out the gym that I work at. And then I think from there...
Did I need to lose some weight?
No.
No, I did. But yeah, I was in the market to lose. Matter of fact, I had just started the intermittent fasting because Mac was doing it, saw great results. So I started the intermittent fasting, but I hadn't really taken it seriously. But then the government shutdown happened in January.
So we had time.
So we had none but time. So that's when we started working out.
Yep.
And then you became my accountability partner.
Yes.
So that was great. And since then, it's been a love affair. At least one.
No, what do you mean?
At least from me to you.
It's both ways.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, the thing about me is I can be pretty aggressive. So even if...
I don't think I've seen the true side of you.
Oh, is that right? I feel like when I like someone, if I like something, I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how I am. That's exactly how I am as well. So I don't think that's why I felt the aggression. I'm like,
okay,
you are going to be. I don't know if I've told you, we're going to be friends. So it doesn't matter where you go. You cannot escape me.
Yeah.
So I guess in that end, we're the same.
Okay, great. So Temi's here, and I think we're going through sort of a similar journey, right? So when we met each other, we kind of connected with working out. Yoga, I don't know. I mean, I love yoga, and the fact that,
yoga's amazing.
Yeah, you're into it as well. So that's pretty amazing. And I think maybe the working out, the yoga kind of allowed us to kind of just explore other facets of some of what we're getting into.
Yep.
And since then, obviously, I'm evolving away from my job into doing my own business, trying to do this podcast, and really just changing how I'm approaching life in general. And I think you're having kind of a similar sort of transformation.
Yes, transition.
Yeah.
Kind of, so to speak.
So what's going on? So what's happened since the start of 2019 up until now for you?
So let's see. It was really interesting. I guess I'll fast forward to maybe the half of the year. I guess when so we did connect over working out at the gym, and that's where we would have really good candid conversations and talking about some of our dreams, our aspirations and stuff. And I guess in one of the conversations that we did have, we talked about being entrepreneurs or setting our own path. And you had instilled something or gave me a lot to think about, which has kind of and I'm going to fast forward and bring me up to this point where I decided to go ahead and become my own boss and be a consultant.
Yeah.
So I would say that happened towards the last quarter of this year, where I am now a self-employed consultant where my employer is now my client. And I would say that I was inspired by you, Bella.
Aww.
And one thing I have admired about you and I've come to learn about you this year is that you are someone who puts things into action, and you inspired me to act on something I've been wanting to do for a while now.
Aww.
So I would say, so meeting you at this, December 2018, I guess was a pivotal point for in my life for this year, 2019.
Nice.
And I would say, so that's kind of how we started this year. It was the government shutdown. Me knowing at that point, I don't want to have in a sense, a lot of decisions that are made is made outside of our control, but I don't want my security net or safety or whatever to be I guess determined by someone who wants to build something or not, and then fighting over it. So the fact that a lot of people were definitely affected by the government shutdown. I luckily was still able to work, but we didn't know what was going on, and I just didn't really like being in that situation where you're how long is this going to go on, and then what are we going to do? So that definitely encouraged me, and with you watching you also put things into action encouraged me to go ahead and say, I'm going to try to chart my own path and do my own thing. And there's still a lot I don't know a lot of what's going on, but I'm just taking things one day at a time. So I am now like I said, as a consultant, and just taking it from there.
That's amazing. I think it's so inspiring, mainly because I think a lot of times, we stop ourselves from progressing. We have all these ideas. We want to do this. We want to be an entrepreneur. We want to. There's a yearning in our souls. I think most people's souls to be their own bosses, or at least create the world in whatever shape or fashion that they want it to be in. Yep. But a lot of us feel disempowered because, we've got to get up, go to work, pay all these bills, and the idea of doing your own thing just seems so far-fetched.
Yes.
What's been surprising to me, and I'm curious to get your take on it, is once you decide to just do it, even though I think that's the biggest mental sort of hurdle to get over, should I do it, should I not, and all this other stuff. But I think once you decide to do it, it seems to be a lot easier.
Yes. And that's why I'm really holding in on the action. Just once you just decide, what, I'm going to do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, or at least, and it's kind of attesting to what we have, in most of our previous conversations, just failing forward and failing fast. Just going ahead and doing, there's really no such thing as failure, so to speak. It's just you just learned a way how not to do something, and there's always some way for you to learn from it. And I kind of just want to take it back a step and say a lot of people want to do so many things, but I think what stops, or at least in my case, was just I didn't know how. So if I and it comes to me, it basically boils down to the fact it's if I don't know how to do it, then I'm probably going to fail at it. So I'm not going to do it because I don't want to mess up.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to change that perspective and look at it in a totally different light and be like, well, you know what? Failure or whatever, so to speak, is actually not a bad thing. It's
mm-hmm.
a good thing, because how else are you going to learn what to do and what not to do?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. And I think when you actually start it, it's less intimidating because that's how life really is supposed to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, even when we were kids and we were like getting up to walk, a lot of us we were falling and and holding on to things. You had to just take that risk and take that step. Like, you know what, I'm going to try, and now we walk every day. It's like it's second nature. We don't even think about it. So it's something like that. Like a lot of the things that we do right now, even in our jobs, we didn't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We took tests. Some of us failed tests. Some of us didn't. But you had to just put yourself out there. So I think it just kind of boils down to the fact of not knowing how and being afraid to fail.
That's such a great point. So it sounds like what you're saying is, because it's funny, we both have children, and even as I speak with my children, obviously they don't enjoy failing either, but I think kids are much more embracing of new things, so they'll try a new video game or a new musical instrument, or they'll go out for the school play, things that for whatever reason we start to shy away from as adults. So I just wonder why it's so, especially being parents, why it's so easy for us to want to instill that or remind our children to do that. But I didn't even connect that as adults, we're not necessarily operating in that space. So we find a space of comfort and we kind of want to stay there and not exploring things.
Yeah, and I guess it's just, and that's kind of like, I read a lot and I listen to like whatever, but it's like we have to almost take that childlike mentality, because even if you're saying like your kids, but even kids at a certain age are not so welcoming to failure, because I guess society, or like however way it's been like imprinted on us, is like failing is bad, or you don't want to take chances. But like what a 2-year-old will try to do, or a 5-year-old or 6-year-old would do, is like some of them still believe that they can be Superman or fly or do whatever they can do, because right now like the world is just still like a playground for them. But as we get older, I guess we're conditioned, to, be like, oh no, you actually have to fit into this, and this is kind of like the box that you're supposed to work in, and this is how you're supposed to be. I guess I don't know. So I guess as you get older, the fear of failure is just...
Yeah, but where does that come from? It just seems so... Okay. So when I go to other countries... or even, we're both Nigerian. Even coming from Nigeria, I feel like the fear of failure is not as strong there per se. Do you know what I mean? So I wonder, I feel like people are much more daring elsewhere.
Nigeria, you have to be a daring individual because of, and I feel
the
like
circumstances.
It all comes down to like how the society is in the whatever society that you're in. But yes, you're right. In Nigeria, and I had this conversation with my sister a few days ago, it's like a lot more people are there to just do whatever they can to survive. So there's just much more of an entrepreneurial spirit there. And there's the hustle, because here in America, where you have like structure, you have things to fall back on, there in Nigeria, you have to like take your own, matter into like in your own hat. So like a lot of them are like not afraid. It's almost like a life or death situation. Like if I don't do something to like supplement my income, I cannot send my kids to school. I can't live like whatever, but here, it's kind of like having that comfort thing. Like you rather choose comfort, but then you have to follow like a certain path. But in Nigeria, it's like there's really no structure. I can I'm the king or queen of my own, destiny, and I can do it. And that's something that we should have everywhere. But like I think Nigeria is like a totally different situation. And plus Nigerians, we just feel like we're just bigger and better than everything.
Yeah, but it seems. I think what it is here, though, is that we are almost victims of our own successes, like the country's successes, and perhaps that's how we should look at it. Obviously, this is a very mature country economy. Their infrastructure is in place, and that's not by happenstance. No. It's by design. And in order for that to be maintained, you're going to need a certain percentage of the general population working to keep that infrastructure going. So I think it's a matter of deciding, are you going to fall into that space, or do you then chart your own path and do.
Yeah,
and I think because I can't imagine that you can be this, bold and, brazen or whatever in that space. But then a lot of people have dreams that are unrealistic for that space. Do you know what I mean? Meaning, like, you only want to work 40 hours a week, don't want to take any sort of risks to your income or what have you. You want a stable paycheck coming every 2 weeks. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to get rich. Everybody wants, this crazy amount of success, and success meaning, monetary, whatever it is, right? And I think maybe sometimes we don't necessarily our goals or what we want for our lives are not necessarily sort of like in line with the environment that we found ourselves in, or even the amount of work or effort that we're willing to put into it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting point that you bring up, but, like, I do feel like people, I guess, you can't have it both ways. Mm-mm. You can't have, like, the stability and, the actual payout of what you get awarded to when you take a risk.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't, like, have, like, a hodgepodge and mix everything up. There are some people who figure things out, but there's, like, that little gray area where you have to be in that, like, you have to, take the action to take the risk and, figure out whatever formula works for you. But you can't have that stability and then also be awarded with something that's, like, highly risked, like a high-risk event. You can't, like, you have to, it's a give or take kind of situation. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
So how do you balance, and I'm interested because I would want us to kind of go through your decision-making process, how you did it and where you are now, and how you can also apply that process to future endeavors, as I'm sure you probably have massive dreams.
Yes.
So I'm curious about that. But I wonder, before we transition to that topic, I think along with wanting the stability and wanting to not do too much for success, I think part of what I'm learning is a lot of people hold themselves back because they don't want the judgment. A lot of people are concerned about what people say, especially if you swing for the fences and then, nothing comes of it, what people will say. So don't you think that also plays a role?
Yeah, but that all still kind of falls under the umbrella of fear.
Okay.
Failure, failure,
and judgment.
Fear of it all falls under the umbrella of fear. And I've come to realize fear actually is something. It is a good thing because it actually is there to protect us. Like if there's an event that could hurt us or whatever, that's what it kicks in. But I think we let that muscle, like the fear muscle, is always like exercised, and the muscle that you exercise so much is like really strong, and then it takes something that really isn't that bad and just like blows it out of proportion. And then we start seeing things that are not as they are, and then start thinking, and it just snowballs into it. So, and like you said though, what I've come to realize, fine, it's good to feel that fear. Because I think I read it in, I can't remember what book it was, but like usually I use that as an indicator right now. So if there's something I'm afraid of, or I'm like, I'm hesitant, like I'm afraid, like I'm feeling fear, then that's the thing that it's like an indicator that that's the road you should be taking.
That's a great point. What is that book?
I can't remember it. I don't want to misquote.
Okay. No, but that's a great point. So you use that as, so if something is not sort of creating any sort of anxiety in you, you're feeling like I'm probably a little too comfortable.
Yeah.
And if you think about something and it creates some sort of fear in you, then you feel like you need to lean into it.
That's the road I should. I'm going to go with door B. That's making me kind of shaky, but that's where I'm going to go.
Oh.
Because in the past, I would turn the other way. But no, I'm going to stay with being comfortable. But I'm like agitated with being comfortable right now. I need something that will challenge me, that will, excite me, make me feel whatever. And that's all behind door number B, which is where I'm feeling fear.
I like that. So, I like that. So then how do you work yourself? Because like you said, okay, fear of losing your house, being out on the street. Like how do you then manage the extreme sort of
so like I said,
ideas of it?
I think most of it, a lot of it is like, fine, yeah, that fear is there, but it'll take a while before that actually happens. So, like, there's some things that it's all, like, in our imagination, and you're like, okay, we have to know, okay, fine, I'm afraid, but I'm going to do it anyway, and know when to get, like, that fear voice, like, the voice, like, stop it in its tracks. Because I feel like we all have, we know we have the power of our voices, right? Especially the internal narrative that we tell ourselves, and what we speak out to about ourselves and about whatever the situation is. And I'm a God girl, you already know. So I just know, like, you speak to those things that are not as though they were, and things that are, like, limiting you or whatever. What I've come, like, I have, like, quiet time every day, whatever. And this week, what I've honed in on is, like, fine, there's some things I've been afraid to face. Or, you know, there's this thing, FOMO, fear of, like, facing, like, opposition or whatever it could be. I'm not running away from things that I feel like could be an obstacle or an opposition. I'm going to face it, and I'm going to tell it the name of the God that I serve, and that name, every knee shall bow. So my knees will bow, and that thing also has to bow. So that's how I feel like, you know, I'm going to talk up God so much, and instead of and thinking about my problem, I'm going to tell my problem about my God. So there's nothing that is too big, and we have that same power within us. We've been equipped with it. He has it, you know, so why are we going to let something that is not there?
That's such a great point.
You know,
yeah, because a lot of us are religious,
but we don't use the power.
We don't use
it
to really address the fears and the concerns and the anxiety. That's a great point. Yeah, yeah. So that's how have been trying to manage it recently. Okay.
So yeah, this week it just kind of like, that's how I've been, like, you know, managing, like, okay, yeah, good thoughts, but then it's like this week I'm like, you know what? That's how I'm going to take the two and merge them together, because it's like, I'm going to feel it anyway, no problem, but you have to talk that fear down, and that's going to be my strategy, to talk that fear down.
You know, a good one for me is, and I may have mentioned this on the podcast at a previous episode, but what's the name of the book? The Big Magic.
Okay.
It's by, what's the name of the lady who did Eat, Pray, Love, Eat, Pray, whatever.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love. Yeah. But she wrote a book called The Big Magic, and it is about fear. And, you know, she's a writer. I don't know if it's fear or anxiety, but along those lines, anxiety around sort of creating, but also a fear of failure if she puts something out there and it not doing well. So ultimately, you end up doing nothing. And I think
be the most thing that you should fear.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, it's not doing anything that's surely going to lead you nowhere. But I think a lot of us feel like, you know, I'm being like, your mind tells you that inaction is actually better than action, because you're not acting out of foolishness. You know, it's wisdom to not act when it's actually the opposite, because there's something to be learned from acting, even if you fail. There's so much to be learned.
No knowledge is ever wasted.
Exactly. Exactly. So what she said about that, because obviously as a writer, and I think a lot of creatives go through this as well, where, you know, they're so passionate and, you know, so invested in what they're creating, what they're writing, you know, if you're an artist, what you're painting, whatever it is, that sometimes they could fall into inaction. And what she says is, every day she's got to conquer this. And it's like, you know, working out. For me, the reason I never worked out is because I was thinking too much about what it was going to take to be in better shape, as opposed to
just doing it.
Get up every day. My only goal today is to make it to the gym. If I make it to the gym,
showing up,
I'm good. Even if showing up is half the battle. And it got to a point, especially when I first started, where I wasn't even concerned about putting in a good workout. I just wanted physically be at the gym, because once I'm there, you know, maybe I'll get the motivation to keep going. But showing up, like you said, is half the battle. So what she was saying is, every day for her, she already knows the resistance is going to come. I don't feel like writing. I don't, you know, and even when she does show up and sits down, the fear of, you know, what am I talking about? Does this make sense? No one is going to buy. It's always going to show up every step of the way. And as opposed to kind of honoring it in the past, where she would say, well, this is my better self sort of providing counsel for me, and that's what that fear is. She says the fear really is kind of random chatter. Mm-hmm. There's no rhyme or reason. Mm-hmm. It's just random chatter, and it's always going to be there. Like, you're never going to get to a point where that random chatter just goes away. So you might as well just welcome it. So every day, she says, I get up every day knowing this thing is going to try to take me down, take me and my art down, tell me I'm useless, I can't do this. But at the end of the day, my goal is to defeat that. Welcome it. So I'm not even spending that much time, fighting it. It's like, I'm getting in this car. We going to New Jersey. Fear, you ready to come along? You welcome to the back seat. What you're not going to do, though, is derail this process. So, yeah. And
it's something that's always going to be there. You can't fight it. So that's why I said I'll use it as a trigger. I'll let it be like, okay, that's the thing. Then I'm going to navigate towards that. I mean, obviously, if it's not something that's going to like put me in danger or anything, but if it's, something I'm talking myself out of because I feel like, then I'm going to, I feel like, that's probably the way I'm supposed to go, because if I choose option A, that's where I'm comfortable. That's not where the learning is going. That's not where the growth is going. That's where everything is going to go. Is where the fear is, like the growth and everything. And just to add to the other point, there's a book I read. It's called The Art of Work. Just sitting down, really, and just sitting down and just doing it. Because sometimes I think we as humans, what ties us up also so much is that we think it's actually us, our talents, us just doing it. Just actually showing up and sitting down and doing it. And just, if you're a writer and just typing whatever it is, just, let that creative flow go.
Get into that space. Yeah.
Get into that space. Because, like, even how everything else has been created, it's not like we're not the actual ones doing it.
No. Yeah.
So it's like, just sit down, show up, fine, have that internal dialogue, fair chat, whatever it is. Like, oh, well, I'm here anyway. I'm going to do whatever I can do. I feel like nothing's ever wasted. Nothing ever is just coincidental and just happens for, just haphazardly. It happens for a reason. So I just feel like we should just kind of like be in the moment to just gain whatever it is that we're supposed to gain that day or that moment, in that time, and just being present. Because I think fear also just like kind of puts us in like the future that we don't even know of, but we're supposed to be in this present moment and just do what we're supposed to do in this present moment and let tomorrow's baggage, face it tomorrow, face it down that thing. So I think that's another thing that we kind of put ourselves like into anxiety or like an anxious mindset, because we're not supposed to know what's supposed to happen tomorrow. We're supposed to do whatever we need to do today to get to tomorrow.
It's so funny because what you just said reminds me of, I think it was a Oprah Super Soul Sunday podcast episode that I was listening to. I forget. I'm not great with names. I forget who was talking. And I may have even read it in a book. I'm not sure at this point. But what clicked for me, and I think that speaks to what you're saying right now, is, so take a tomato seed. When you plant it in the ground, it has no other choice but to grow into tomatoes. The will, the self-will, or what have you, to have input into that process is not there. If you plant into a fertile environment, you water, you put sunlight, like that's all that's required. Everything else happens. And it's the same in so many ways. I mean, even us, like when we, like the process of giving birth, we don't understand what's going on. We just understand what needs to happen. It happens. How the baby comes out, I don't know. I can't will that. Everything. And it works. And I think because, we have this mind, which should actually elevate us in terms of the how much more powerful we can and all the things that we can accomplish. I mean, it's just so amazing. I mean, the fact that even this world, the way it is amazing how human beings have sort of crafted it out of sheer force from what it was to the orderly state that it is right now. So I think that's exactly right in that, our destiny is already set. You don't got no control over that. All you got to do, like you said, is show up. And another reason why I started doing that, and I'm going to tell you how my process is kind of similar to how you're battling with fear. Another thing that I realize is any human examples that we've seen. So if I see an Oprah or Beyonce, to me, that's like, like if you have like an oak tree or what have you, like those massive trees, we know the potential. There's some trees that can grow to like just tremendous heights. If you're in the right environment. And to me, when we look at other human beings who are performing well, to me, that's not a sign that I can't do it. That's just a sign of my potential. That is a clear example of what we're capable of doing. And as long as I get out of my own way, then the possibility is there. So I think how I've now been trying to tap into that, because you're right, the self-talk is, the constant chatter is there. And if we're not astute in terms of how we sort of navigate around it, we find it, leading us as opposed to us kind of leading the way. So what I try to lean into, which is why I've been doing a lot of random things lately, is if I get any sort of inspiration and that sticks around, I'm like, oh, that's God's way of telling me that's where I need to go. I don't care how big it is. Yeah. I don't care how ridiculous, and or even how impossible. And, we can then talk about, because I'm curious about, your marriage and partnerships, because, if we're trying to create a life together and I'm here and somebody's here. So, but what I've been doing lately, and, it's caused some sort of conflict, and Mac and I need to kind of negotiate it. But a lot of times, I may say, I want to do this next year. And he may say, well, that is unrealistic. And what I'm having to tell myself is I can't let today's circumstances or constraints kind of limit me from my future, So I've got to figure out if that's what I want, I'm going to put it out there and figure out a way to work towards it. Because I don't know how else we sort of tap into and occupy the space of our potential and destiny, but to listen to those moments of inspirations and go with it, knowing that, the universe, God, will kind of support us through the process into making it a reality. So.
Yeah, no, most definitely. But like two things, because like I kind of like that kind of dropped in my mind when we were talking, when you talked about like the tree being planted to like reach its potential height. That's great and everything, and that's perfect. But then it just popped in my head. It was like, we have that same potential to reach whatever exponential heights, but we don't have to be rooted in one place. We can move. We can be flexible. We can, and that's how, because that's another thing where people kind of are like, I'm going to follow this. Because I'm kind of like, somehow structured, I believe that there should be some kind of structure, but then there's some flexibility to it. But then there's people who are so honed in, like, no, if I don't do it this particular way, then I can't. I can't get it done. Or they're so rigid. It was like, this is how my mom did it. This is how whatever. And they feel that that's the exact same plan that they have to follow. No, it just because it was done this way for this person doesn't mean that you have to follow that exact same roadmap. So that kind of popped in my head.
That's a great point.
So, we have the flexibility and the gift of movement, of being able to flow and try different things. To reach that same potential height. And then the other thing that kind of like popped in my head was that, like you mentioned marriage, and there's some things that, at the end of the day, yes, we are one as a unit together, but then we each have our own dreams, aspirations, and calling. So there's something that I want that doesn't make sense to my husband, Jide, or, whoever your partner, but it doesn't mean that it should stop you from going after or doing whatever it is that you want to do, as long as it's not to the detriment of your relationship, obviously. But I feel like we should still maintain some level of individuality in our marriages, because I feel like, that could be a topic for another day, but like we kind of like, you don't want to lose yourself in the marriage and become like like a hybrid of something, or I don't know, whatever. But like, you still want to be able to stay true to yourself as well, to your calling. So,
and that's the key word. It's your calling, because an apple tree and a banana tree, two separate calling,
but they're both fruit.
But they're both fruit, right? So, and they've got to be able to kind of follow their paths, and you can coexist and nurture each other. I mean, we're all part of this massive ecosystem where, from the worms in the ground all the way to, human beings, we're all part of the ecosystem. So we can coexist. We can create beautiful, amazing things together.
Even in our bodies. Even our bodies. I mean, if you have, like, if your nose hurts, like, your whole body feels it, like a nostril or anything.
Right.
So, like...
But the liver still does what it's supposed to do.
Everybody still does what it...
Play your position. So yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I like that. I'm going to start thinking about that more. So then how did that play into your process of going from being employed to knowing you have a desire to do your own thing, but then also being part of a unit? You guys have, a family. How did you sort of come about that process once you've settled in on that decision that that's what you wanted to do?
Sure. So I am someone that kind of gets, I would say, bored easily or not. I'm always looking for what's the next thing for me to do. And I'm just saying that because this year I did start a lot of the interviewing elsewhere, thinking, I just need to change jobs. That's probably what I need to do. I need to go somewhere else. But then my husband said something, and he's like, no matter where you go, you're going to find someone who's this, or you're going to find this situation, or you're never really going to find the ideal, situation, which I know. I'm a realist. I get that. But then it was you know what? You're right. What's the point of going somewhere else, and then another year or two, you're going to be oh, I want to do something. And I feel that was the itch because I've always wanted to be my own boss, be an entrepreneur, or chart my own way or whatever. So I would say it's almost him that kind of started this, instilled this kind of
so he was supportive from the beginning.
He was supportive, but but like you said, we do have a family and small children to support who are in school and school fees and everything like that. So I got to the point where I felt in my current position at that time where I loved the clients, I loved the work. I just didn't want. I wanted more flexibility. I needed it. I craved it it was air. I needed and craved the flexibility because I needed to be. I wanted to have more time with the children and kind of chart my own way. So, and like I said, I just take as much everything I can because he says bring everything to him in prayer. Take all things. So I just prayed on it a lot, meditated on it a lot, and it just came to me. It was well. I support a government agency, as you know. So their fiscal year ends on September 30th. So I think it was early September, and I just woke up and I told my husband, I was you know what, I think I'm just gonna leave on the 30th. It would be a good time to just kind of I wrapped it up. I helped them wrap up the fiscal year. It was a good year. We got really good deliverables, went above and beyond, exceeded expectations, and I'm just gonna go. And him being the supportive man, it was just okay, yeah, if that's what you want, fine, and we'll figure it out as it goes on.
He's a good man.
He is, but then he says that because and I'm not sure, and he is a good man.
Let me tell you, even saying that alone,
he'll say that, but then because I know he doesn't want, but then I know I don't want that burden on him because I've grown up never ever wanting to be a burden on anyone. So, and I wouldn't want because I know what type of burden that would be on him with us and the 2 kids and the mortgage and all that stuff. So, I thought about it some more and I was okay, you know what? I'm going to propose this to them. That I become a consultant for them and will become my own self-employed person, and I would consult for them on this because I know the application well. I'm very good with the users. I love them. Not love them, but I really have a good relationship with the users. And let's see how it goes. So I presented it, and I really didn't know how it was going to go. And so that's that risk part, and not knowing if they could say no, and I was ready for them to be okay, no, then fine. The 30th would be my last day. I have nothing to fall back on. But, I just knew that whatever.
But you were already in that space where you could have handled the no if it came because you and your husband were already on the same page. You were already done with it. So it wouldn't have hit you
so hard.
It wouldn't be like getting fired. No, if you randomly got fired out of nowhere, it would still be the same situation. But this time you came to terms with it. You're making that decision.
So if they were going to say no, I was ready for it. I was going to welcome it. But fortunately, they accepted it. And I think I even talked to you about it before. I even gave whatever. But most of my terms, or if not all of the terms, actually they were agreed on everything. And everything really just worked out from there. And
I mean, that's amazing. Doesn't that? So it's stuff like that that makes me feel like we dream so small.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many moments that I just be kicking myself where I'm like, why was I settling for all of that when I could be? And then imagine even now, I mean, not that I'm not doing much, but flexibility has been interesting for me, and I've been exploring that. And I think so far this year, the biggest thing that I've gained myself is flexibility.
Yep.
I wake up every day. I get to decide what I'm going to do with my time. Yep. I don't think I'm asking for too much. Yep. Let me try to figure out a way to pay my bills and still have control of my time. Mm-hmm. That's something like 2 years ago seemed like fantasy. I can't even tell when I'm like missing my children's random activities, staying up all hours of the night, waking up all hours of the morning, being stuck in traffic, not feeling like I had any voice to advocate for myself. Then somebody like looking into where I am right now, thinking I could wake up and say, what are you going to do today? It would have been fantasy, but just imagine how long a lot of us go and just settle for things that don't work for us because we can't imagine even thinking beyond. Like you were just thinking, let me change and get another job until it occurred to you, nah. Let me own the job.
Let me own it. Let me own my flexibility.
Yeah.
Because I think there was this saying, like, I think it's in the hospitals or hospice. I think it was the hospice. And they ask a lot of the patients there, are elderly and are almost like reaching the end of their time, and they would ask like, what was it like if they can go back and like change something, what would it be? And they said like a high percentage, I don't know what, because I'm not going to quote any numbers, but say, I didn't have to work so much. I could have been flexible to be there with my family and be there with my children. So to be honest with you, the main deciding factor was I wanted to be flexible enough to spend time with my family and with my kids and just have the time, have the flexibility to be like, what, we're going to do this on Friday, or I'm going to do this, and like not have that, I still want structure because I still like work, I love getting my hands dirty, getting into things, but I want that flexibility of having my own start time and having my own end time and knowing, okay, after this, I'm doing this. I don't have to worry about stress or work or whatever. Like I'm on at this time, off this time, and that's it. So yeah, and I feel like we all have that capability if we just kind of decide to like take the grab the bull by the horns, but it all boils down to like what I think it is fair.
Yeah, what are you willing to risk, quote unquote, and what are you willing to advocate for when it comes to yourself? Yeah. Well, that's great. And it's good that, so the process wasn't difficult in terms of trying to convince your husband. He was supportive. You went, you asked, they said yes. So it's been smooth sailing ever since.
I mean, I guess the one thing looking back now is that, you have to be ready for a no.
But I think that's life. I think a lot of us, like it's funny.
Take it personal.
A lot of us, we go to work and we're thinking because the check is guaranteed, so to speak, as long as you're doing your job, but anything can happen. These companies can fire you at any point. Yeah. They can downsize. I mean, this happens all the time. So I think we actually trade away, our flexibility, time, the dreams that we have, and we get very little in return. I mean, what you get in return is guaranteed paycheck, but a lot of us even settle for way less than we're worth just for that guarantee. When if you're willing to just embrace the fear, embrace the risk, whatever it is, and just do a little bit more, you can enjoy so much more without even realizing it. So I think that's the biggest, to me, when I understood that, I actually felt like I wasted a good 20 years of my life. I was like, what in the world? I mean, I've been bamboozled.
But I also want to not say like I said, I don't think anything we've ever done or anything we do is ever wasted. Yeah. I just think it took you 20 years to get there, and then now that's why you're at the point where you're able to grab and also appreciate the different opportunities that are presented to you. So it was just 20 years of experience of being able to grow you into the person that you are right now, so that you know not to waste time on things and just act.
I mean, that's a great point. You're always so positive. But I wouldn't want my children to do that. Exactly. I want my kids to advocate for themselves at any given point, no matter what's at stake. Because I think, to a reasonable extent. I mean, hopefully they're good enough children so they'll be reasonable in what they're going after, and it's all going to be for the good and positive, not trying to take down beings,
No, yeah.
So, but as long as it's good and you get that inspiration, I don't care where it comes from, that's the voice of God.
Yeah.
Telling you, oh, how about if I do this? But a lot of times we just tamp it down right away. You don't even think about it. You feel undeserving. Who am I to be saying this? Nah, you need to explore that. And I want you to be in that space where you're going to advocate for it and not, just say, not now, I'm not, my peers are not doing this. So that's what I mean.
But you also advocate in action for kids. So them seeing you do it, what you're doing
that's true.
Is, oh, wow, my mom is doing it. So you know what? Oh, that's
easy. That's nothing.
It's very doable. It's possible. I won't say easy because things, but my mom did it and she was able to. Then fine, because that's what kids learn by example, and they're soaking everything in that we're doing right now as well. So that's another thing is we have to do what we're called to do in our generation, so that whatever battles that we're supposed to take care of, we don't pass it over to the next generation.
And then where we leave off becomes a baseline for them to take it further.
And they were supposed to start 10 steps ahead. So we have to do the work to get to that step so that they are, up and ready for the battle for what they're supposed to do in their generation. We're not supposed to leave any residual stuff that we're supposed to take care of for them to, all that baggage. No, I feel like that's what, and we don't do it on our own, resources, and we don't have to beat ourselves up. But we're constantly learning day by day. We even can learn from our children. That's another thing I look at too. Like, I feel like you can learn from every avenue, from anyone. I learn from my children on a daily basis how they, go about things, and I let them be my source of inspiration too. So, it's just...
It's about being open to the possibilities, knowing that it's infinite.
Yes. And change is that's the only constant thing, is that things are constantly
and you
changing,
have to be willing to,
you have to be willing to be open.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. So now that you've taken this massive step, as we get ready to close out 2019 and knowing that, you can dream the impossible and make it happen. What are your dreams for 2020? Or are you still kind of working on them?
So my dreams for 2020, is to at least definitely be more action oriented. Definitely planning out. So for this year, what I'm working on right now is just like having my plan in place to be ready for the rest of the year, for 2020, so that when 2020 rolls out, I'm ready to go. And obviously it's definitely growing, continuing to learn. I'm an advocate for being, a learner, but I think one thing I have not been really having a willingness to do is to just act. I'm someone that would gather all the information and then not really do much with it. But I'm no longer doing that.
Yeah.
I'm
you're going to act while picking stuff up along the way.
Yeah, picking stuff up and act. And if it doesn't work, try again. So I guess my mantra... So this year my word was being vulnerable. So I guess...
Did you get that from the One Word book?
No.
Where'd you pick the vulnerable word from? There's a book that I read. It's called One Word, where you pick a word to hone in on. Mine is transformation for the year. And so you just randomly always pick words? That's interesting.
Yeah, I do know about the one I didn't read the book, but I do know that there's I guess it was a devotional thing, and you just pick one word to kind of whatever. And
so yours is vulnerable.
My word was vulnerable. Being vulnerable.
In what way?
Being vulnerable. So if I don't know something, be open till you don't know it. And if you don't like it, just be vulnerable. You don't have to be the perfect. And I'm the firstborn, so I guess I've always felt I had to be example. I had to be the example. I had to be the perfectionist. But no, I'm vulnerable to know I don't know what that is, but I can find out the information. And I think that's another thing I want to hold on to as well, is if I'm afraid of doing something or I don't want to do something, it's because you you don't have the knowledge to do it. But we live in a time right now that we can find out information so quickly. We can become knowledgeable on things, as long as we're willing to do it. So I feel like another thing that was stopping me was because I didn't know how to do something. So one, I'll just act on it and then be committed to learning about it. And if it doesn't work or it doesn't fit, then I'm just gonna go ahead and move. And like, with our background, like I'm more in an agile, like IT work. So my thing, I guess, for next year is to be much more agile and just go with the flow and be agile, like a lean agile approach in life.
Nice.
There you go.
I like it. Mine is, and I still need to, so I told you about the vision board session that I'm going to be attending at the end of the year in December. But what I want is to not limit what inspirations I get. So I think it's too cold. Oh, my phone died. I think it's too cold. I think I was just telling you, I'm exploring how to not be here during the cold anymore. I need to figure out a way to spend time here when it makes sense. But I'm not going to be beating myself up for the cold, just to make it through. There are plenty of beautiful spaces around the world that I can go to. And I think, if I continue to position myself in a way where I'm not tethered to a particular space or location, I should be able to move in a way that I'm not tortured by weather. So my goal next year is kind of just not feel like I need to put up with, things, however...
That don't serve you.
That don't serve me, yes. I don't care if it's the environment, if it's the atmosphere, if it's friends, family, whatever it is. I really just want to go the path of least resistance and create a situation that makes that happen. So, yeah.
Definitely.
So we'll see.
Once you figure that out, let me know.
I will.
I'm all right with the cold now, but I think I'm getting there too.
And I'm too old. That's what I'm realizing. I'm too old. I'm not impressed by the snow. I'm not impressed by having to get all sorts of jackets on and everything. No, I'm done. So
I like the fact that we live in
the DMV area
that we can experience 4 seasons.
People say that. Once again, there are lots of things that I'm realizing people say, but it's really not true. It may be true for you. I'm not saying, but a lot of people will be like, "Oh my God, I love." It's kind of like pregnancy. Did you enjoy pregnancy?
I did.
I did not.
I did.
And I remember being pregnant, thinking, everybody told me I was going to see the moon, the sky, and be one with nature. This is not
maybe what you were expecting. Maybe how they painted it out for you.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I was very happy with both pregnancies. Just had a good time.
I mean, I didn't even have a miserable pregnancy.
You were just over it.
I was just like, like, why are you people selling these dreams about pregnant? Like, people were just like, oh my God, you're gonna be glowing. I certainly. One thing I was not was glowing. My ankles were swelling. I mean, I remember actually thinking, I just thought the human race was further along than to have to endure pregnancy. I remember thinking, you know what they're doing now with the tubing?
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't understand. Why am I still carrying this baby around? Let somebody else do it or something else. So no, I didn't. It was highly inconvenient. My ankles were swelling. My hips were popping in and out. It just was not enjoyable. Let me say that. So, but I feel like a lot of people say a lot of things, kind of like, even with jobs, people are like, oh my God, I love my job. No, you don't.
Some people do, Bob.
Okay, you're right.
Some people actually really do.
If they are walking in their purpose. Maybe not even.
And it means it's not, okay, and also it's like you can really love what you do. You don't have to love it every single day or love like, some aspects of it, but you can genuinely really love your job.
You're right, because I actually love my job now. I don't know what it is, but, I'm clobbering it together. But I enjoy my clients. I enjoy the things that I do.
Yeah.
So I could see how some people can get there. But for the most part, though, I'm talking about when I was at my other job, everybody walking like they're, like, doing brain surgery. And you're just like, we're really just paper pushing. Do you guys understand? This does not. this does not mean anything, people. But anyways, the point is people say a lot of things and... So, yeah, weather is one of those things. No, I don't mind 90-degree weathers if I can.
I don't mind it either, but I mean, yeah. I mean,
you'll make do with the 4 seasons.
I like it. I like the. I guess I kind of like. I like the change, like the transitioning of like spring to, so obviously there's some seasons like prefer over others, but I believe like we all need these seasons, and everything was planned out like this for a reason. So I'm okay living in this.
Yeah, I don't mind the master plan of Hawaii.
But yeah, but I'm sure that probably would you want to be there year in and year out? Like that probably gets old at some point. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind it.
I like exploring, and I like, because I feel like we get to live in like different places every season in the same place, like in the same DMV
That's
area.
how you've convinced yourself of this?
Like, yeah, it's like, oh, now it's cold, and then everything kind of changes, and in the fall, it looks a little different. In the summer, there's a different energy and vibe with the seasons, and that's kind of like what I...
You know the energy and vibe I feel during the wintertime?
What?
Sad, gloomy depression. I feel like people are just heads down. It's not vibrant.
From the cold.
From the cold, and it's just gloomy.
You don't take the... There's a different scent in the air. Mints.
No, maybe around Christmas time. There is a different energy around Christmas time, and I think it's because everybody trying to shop.
Because right now you can almost kind of feel it, but like now we're just going into different...
I know, right? It's like, what are we talking about? But, no, I think... No, I'm over it. Let me just say, I'm over it. It's too cold. I'm not here for it. And I actually feel like it's... like a lot of productivity is lost during the wintertime. I think as well. I think I would be so much more productive in a warmer weather.
And basically kind of is like you said, like positioning and being in an environment that serves you. So if you feel that, then that's true. Then you need to be in an environment of warmth that will allow you to be your best self. Yeah. So definitely. So that's the goal for 2020. We'll see how to position I'll be
myself there.
At least as long as I can, at least if I can escape from the cold for like a week or two, then I'll come over and visit. And
listen, back. Always welcome. But this is great. I'm looking at the time. I mean, this is we've got to go. But this is great. Thank you so much for joining me, Temi.
Thank you for having me, Bola.
Yeah. Did you have a good time?
I had an awesome time.
Yeah. So I guess we'll save the book kind of thing for next time. Okay. Yeah. So more to come from Temi. Yay. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Happy Someday is Today Day. Yay. Today's the official launch.
Congratulations on the launch.
Thank you.
Really awesome. Very happy.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And then for those who are listening, please, what do we tip? Like
and subscribe.
Like, subscribe, and share.
Oh, subscribe.
Like, subscribe, and share. We're on Apple and all the other streaming services. So definitely share with your friends. All right. Until next time, here's to living your best life. Bye-bye.